stovetops. We pay a lot of money for them, but they can be one of the great mysteries of the kitchen in terms of cleaning. So in this video, I want to review with you the 4 different types of cooktops that you might see in a kitchen, but we're specifically going to focus on how to clean a gas cooktop in this particular video. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video where I share with you a quick story about why I never use oven cleaner. And give this video a thumbs up if you like Nutella. I have to tell you, my friend started talking about Nutella on the phone this morning and I haven't been able to get it off my mind. And just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe to the Clean My Space channel. And I wanted to let you know that this video has been brought to you by Makers Clean, our sister company, where we sell premium microfiber cleaning tools and so much more. You can sign up for the email list, you can check out and see what we have. It's all available over at makersclean.com or makersclean.ca. So the 4 types of cooktops that you'll encounter are gas, which essentially uses an open flame ignited by a pilot light and gas to heat the cookware, ergo heating your food. Next up, we've got electric or a glass cooktop. This heats cookware using metal coils or heating elements, usually under a flat ceramic glass surface. Next up is induction, and this is a type of electric cooktop that uses electromagnetism or magnets to turn your cookware, which has to be induction compatible, into its own heat source, so the rest of the cooktop will not heat up. And finally, there's downdraft. This integrates the ventilation system directly into the cooking surface, which eliminates the need for an overhead vent. I would say of all of these different types of cooktops, gas is the most finicky or the most tricky. You really have to familiarize yourself with the cooktop and all of its components so that you know how to remove everything safely, what else you need to remove, how you need to clean each of those components, and then how to put it back together again, a la Humpty Dumpty, because it will take an extra minute or two if you're not familiar with it. So if you have your manufacturer's instructions, or if there's a video that you can watch specifically created by your manufacturer, make sure that you check that out first so that you're really comfortable with the way that your cooktop works. The products and tools we're going to be using to do this job are very similar to the products and tools that we use to clean pots and pans. We don't want to cause scratching, but we have a lot of grease and grime and buildup that we need to get rid of. So in looking at the tools we're going to be using, we've got rubber gloves to protect the hand. We've got a cleaning toothbrush and a microfiber cloth, which I'm going to be using to do my wiping and drying. Then I've got all-purpose cleaner, which is essentially dish soap and water. I've got some dish soap for soaking. I've got a heavy-duty dish soap spray. It's a little bit more expensive, but for those heavy-duty areas, I'm going to use this to spray rather than using something like a cream cleanser, because I don't want to have to deal with scraping that out of any of the burners. I've got some water and I've got some baking soda. In the event that I do need to remove any gunk from a burner, I will use baking soda, but I'm going to be mindful because that's going to require a lot of cleanup after. Remember, I don't want to leave anything in there. I'm a firm believer in putting gloves on before attempting any of these heavy-duty jobs. It just makes you feel a little bit more powerful. Now, if it's your first time or first few times cleaning your gas cooktop, you might actually want to record yourself disassembling the top. That way you kind of know where all of the pieces go. Once you do it a few times, you'll be much more confident, but it is a really good thing so that you're not struggling with figuring out where to put everything back. Now, the next step is pre-treating, and I'm going to be pre-treating these burner pieces here, and I'm just using dish soap and baking soda and warm water. Now for the stovetop, you'll see I'm using a heavy-duty dish soap spray, and that's only for spot treating certain areas that are really dirty. The rest of it isn't so bad, so I'm just going to switch to a general all-purpose cleaner, dish soap and water, something DIY and inexpensive, and I'm doing that because it's inexpensive and I don't need to use anything fancier. If this was really grimy, I might use that heavy-duty dish soap spray everywhere, or I might whip up another DIY cleaning recipe, like equal parts dish soap and baking soda to get the job done. Now for the grates, I'm using that same all-purpose cleaner just to get it wet. These aren't too bad, I maintain them pretty well, but for the areas that are dirty, I'm using that heavy-duty dish soap spray. Now that everything that's grimy is pre-treated, I'm going to move on to the easiest part of the job, which for me are these ceramic burners. Now keep in mind, You have to decide what the easiest job is for you to tackle first, and that's the one you want to start with. You want to let everything else pre-soak. A trick that I like to do is after I finish scrubbing, I don't rinse them right away. I sort of let them sit with the soap on them for a little while. That helps to break down any extra grease or grime that I might have missed. And then when I rinse everything off and allow it to dry, you notice it is just that little extra bit cleaner. I've got a waffle weave dish towel here. I'm just gonna lay everything flat to dry. And while I'm doing this, I'm checking on the areas that I've pre-treated. And if I notice that anything is starting to dry, I just re-wet the surface. Now I'm going back to the burners, and again, I'm using the scrub square here just to get into those little nooks and crannies. You want to make sure that this is really, really clean because it can affect how the gas actually comes out, and that can affect cook times and quality. So you really want to get in there with a cleaning toothbrush if you notice that there's any buildup. Then I'm giving these a good rinse. You want to make sure that there's nothing clogging any of these, and I'm allowing them to dry. All right, let's move on to the cooktop. And the pre-treating worked wonders here. I don't have to do much work at all in terms of elbow grease. It's more just agitating and wiping. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is I'm not getting this surface soaking wet and being sloppy with my water. In fact, you'll notice that I'm drying midway so that I don't have to worry about any water going into the stove itself. I don't want to have any issues with any product or water getting into the area where the gas comes out of. Now for the area where the gas comes out of, those little white outlets, I'm just using a toothbrush to brush around them. If you notice yours are dirty, you can spend a little bit more time on them. Mine weren't that bad. And by blotting up any of that soapy residue, it allows me to see what everything looks like before I give it a final rinsing wipe. So I'm adding a little bit of water here. I have a fresh microfiber cloth, and I'm just going to rinse off all of that soapy residue, and this should get the stovetop nice and clean. Once these are rinsed, I'm going to dry them really, really well. Like I said, they're cast iron, and they can rust pretty easily if you don't dry them fully before you replace them. Before I replace everything, I'm just gonna give it one last dry, just to make sure. And this would be the time where you replay that video of your assembly in case needed. These should fit together like a puzzle piece, and quite frankly, you shouldn't have to force them. That's something I've learned over the years, putting a lot of these stovetops back together. If it doesn't feel easy and obvious, it's probably not the right spot. So my hope is that you feel much more confident cleaning your gas cooktop now. And I know it can feel like it's a lot of work. The one tip I will give you is clean it after every use, which sounds obvious, but trust me, the longer you leave messes sitting on that cooktop, the harder they become to clean. And that brings me to this week's comment question, which is, what is your preferred cooktop type? I love the idea of using gas because it's what they use in professional restaurants, and obviously we know I'm a professional chef. But I do feel that induction is the most environmentally conscious way to go, and also the safest way to go. The one thing that makes me really nervous about using gas, especially with a young child at home, is the open flame. So the idea with induction is that nothing else gets hot on the surface except for the element itself and the pot or pan that you're cooking with. So I kind of like induction better, but it's really hard to give up that power of gas. If you love the Clean My Space channel and you want to support what we do, consider joining our membership program. And now I have to tell you that crazy story about oven cleaners. So you may or may not know, I have my own cleaning company. I've had it since 2006. And when I started to think about training my staff and figuring out what products we felt comfortable using and not, I was doing a lot of research. And I know that oven cleaner is an important cleaning tool to have in your cleaning arsenal, especially when you're doing a lot of turnover cleans. And here's the deal, oven cleaner is caustic, which means if it gets on your skin or even on a surface, it can cause burns, which is a big no. And then I read a really kind of scary / sad story about a lawsuit that happened with a particular oven cleaner that you're probably familiar with, where a lady was having trouble getting the trigger, like the spray trigger, to work. So she primed it a bunch of times. She was pumping it to try and get the product to work. It wasn't working. So she turned it toward her and was fiddling around with the nozzle, and then it shot her in the eye and she went blind. So yeah, no oven cleaner for me. Well, if you're already cleaning your kitchen, you might want to check out this video, which talks about how to fix a stinky sink. Try saying that 3 times fast. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe to the Clean My Space channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.